being with us. Today we are here to celebrate Sarah Rose Etter's first novel, The Book of X. And we'll be hearing from Sarah at the end of the reading. And up first, we have Willie Fitzgerald. Willie Fitzgerald is a fiction fellow at the Michener Center. He's the co-founder and co-organizer of April, a festival of small press and independent publishing. His writing has appeared in journals, including Prairie Schooner, Hobart, and Poor Claudia. Please welcome Willie Fitzgerald.
Oh, all right. I thought it was going to be more complicated than that. Hi, thanks very much. Thanks especially to Sarah and to Eleanor and to Malvern. It's a pleasure to read with these two, and it's a pleasure to read here. I'm going to just get the evening started with, I'm not going to give it any intro, but I think you might gather what the story's about pretty quickly. So, two guys walk out of a dentist's office. The first guy, we'll call him Dave, has had 3 fillings put in and the left side of his face no longer belongs to him. Second guy, let's say Roger, just got a full set of porcelain crowns, which are squared off and eerily bright, like his mouth is full of chiclets. Dave turns to Roger and says, drooling a little, "So much for my valedictory address." Roger says, "Come again, cowboy?" That's something Roger's seen in an action movie, one of those blockbusters where the protagonist has a wife young enough to be his daughter. Those are Roger's favorite type of movie. Dave swallows and says with effort, "It was just a joke." "Dave?" Roger says. Dave's not used to these new teeth. They feel too big in his mouth. Dave Shockley? Dave and Roger, it turns out, go way back, sort of. Almost 25 years ago, Dave dated one of Roger's sister's roommates, and they'd been friendly, but not much more than that. Actually, Roger always thought that Dave was a bit of a drip, and Dave was always a little scared of Roger, who at that time drove a white Corvette with red leather seats. Now, standing outside the dentist's office in the early afternoon, Roger says, "You want to go to the bar for one? It'll jog your memory." So now 2 guys walk into a bar. The bar is one of those low-ceiling setups that have consoled Rogers and Dave's for 100 American years. Big tarnished mirror behind the ramparts of liquor bottles, green glass lamp over the scarred pool table, vague notes of pine sol and urinal cakes. 100,000 slouching forearms have buffed the edge of the bar to leathery softness. "You're an accountant?" Roger says. "My job is less necessary." He smiles into his beer, admiring his own self-deprecation. He doesn't believe it. Roger is a C-level executive for an insurance company. He has a spacious corner unit that overlooks the candy blue lagoon in his office park. It goes without saying that Roger makes a lot more money than Dave. Dave's aged better, though. He has a long English face and delicate features. Everything on Roger is blunted. Round nose, round cheeks, low, rounded brow. Neither man has friends. Well, Roger's got one, and that's me, but I'll get to that later. Dave has a daughter, a teenager who lives with her mother. He loves her, really and truly does, even though she doesn't make any sense to him anymore. He misses the younger version of her, misses making her laugh. For a while, he was so good at being funny for kids that he stopped knowing how to be funny for adults. To wit, Dave drinks some of his beer and then turns to Roger and allows the liquid to dribble from his drooping mouth. "Ta-da," Dave says. Roger waits for something else to happen. "So," Roger says eventually, "married still? Heard you got married." "Not anymore," Dave says. "Same here," Roger says. "We had very different approach vectors to life." "What's your approach vector?" "Fast and furious." Roger laughs, then goes quiet. "Another drink?" The happy hour crowd walks into the bar. Suddenly, Roger and Dave are surrounded by people in their 20s and 30s. It's good timing. The 2 men have run out of things to talk about, each silence nagging and increasingly desperate, but now they have a bevy of targets. Alpha male over here, Roger says, nodding at a young man in a sharkskin suit, which glimmers as he paces around the pool table, sizing up his angle. Dave arches his back and waddles in place on his stool, imitating the man's muscular trot. These guys, this khaki and shiny vest shit with these glasses, Roger says, and these lanyards. Dave nods, though it's not clear who Roger is talking about. And what about Corner Booth, Roger says, grinning. She knows what she did. Dave just smiles. In 5 or so years, that might be his daughter. She's leaving for college next year. He took her to his alma mater and tried to introduce her to a professor of his, but the old bastard barely remembered him, even though Dave had written him an email and called his office beforehand. And his daughter didn't even want to take accounting classes. She wanted to take English, or maybe women's studies. Dave couldn't remember, and she told him this, but he still dragged her to this musty old office to learn about spreadsheets. You're a joke, she'd said. This is a joke. Roger is still going on about the young woman in the corner booth, and Dave knows he should stand up and leave, make a move for his wallet so Roger will one-up him and pay for the whole thing. But Dave can't remember the last time he's been out at a bar with someone, or even had this long of a conversation. And so when Roger invites him over for dinner, says he wants to show him something he won't believe, Dave ignores his comments about the young woman, ignores the fact that he needs to get his car from the paid lot, and he agrees. Roger starts telling the story on the drive. It goes like this. One afternoon, shortly after his wife had reached her limit, Roger was out driving and saw a hand-painted sign for a talking dog tacked up at a railroad crossing. Sure, Roger thinks, and keeps driving. Pretty soon he sees another sign, talking dog for sale. Now Roger starts leaning into the texture of the story. He stops to buy a quart of apple cider from a guy eating Vienna sausages off the end of a hunting knife. He helps a car full of co-eds change a tire. Roger's always like this when he tells this story. Thing is, Dave's heard this one before. It's an old joke. Guy sees a sign for a talking dog, goes to the farm, dog does indeed talk, dog tells his whole amazing life story, then the farmer gives the dog away practically for nothing. Why, the man says. The farmer shrugs. That dog's a liar. But Dave's a good sport, and he doesn't stop Roger. It's been a long time since he's had a drink somewhere that wasn't his kitchen. Still, he wishes Roger would just get to the punchline, especially since the whole point of the joke is that the end is a disappointment. But Roger's still shaggy dogging it. The leaves that day, he says, shuddered in the breeze like a dog does when it's dreaming. He's only just arrived at the farmhouse as he pulls into his own driveway. Roger's place is 3 times too big for one man, with the lawn so tidy and green it looks painted on. The front door opens to a tall foyer with staircases going up either side to a central landing that overlooks the living room. The carpet on the right staircase is immaculate, because Roger takes the left one, always, every time. Nice place, Dave says, peering into the living room. The walls are bare, the couch low and made of black leather and chrome. A dog pads into the foyer, a mutt with one blue eye and one brown eye. Hi, buddy, Dave says, showing his knuckles to the dog. Are you the talking dog? Just wait, Roger says. I got a couple steaks in the freezer. You like steaks? Sure, Dave says. He mostly eats seafood now, occasionally turkey. It's better for the environment. But this is Roger's place, and he doesn't want to make a fuss. And that's your whole problem, his ex-wife said once. You'd lie down in traffic if someone asked nicely. Roger pulls 2 vacuum-sealed steaks from his freezer and throws them in the microwave, punches in some numbers. The dog noses Dave's trousers, getting a good whiff of his laundry detergent. Lavender, something his wife probably picked out and which he can't bear to stop using, and then curls up in a ratty dog bed in the corner. Roger starts fiddling with his surround sound, telling Dave he's got to hear this. There's really no other way to listen to Steve Winwood. And Dave is struck by how ridiculous all this is. What poorly tended path led him here, to this massive kitchen with this drunken man he barely knows? Dave thinks of the people in the bar, the young and the not quite as young, all laboring under the same beautiful delusion that life will all make sense. Steve Winwood booms to life, and Roger is back in the high life again. He goes to the wet bar and takes down a bottle of single malt and 2 cut glass tumblers, fills them halfway. You remember that guy, Roger yells over the music, the one who could thread a necklace from his nose into his mouth? James Gilligan, Dave says. They already talked about Gil, back in the bar, before the happy hour crowd came in. Gilligan, Roger says, and then loses his train of thought. The microwave goes off. The dog raises its head from the bed. Roger pulls the steak from the microwave and cuts open the vacuum bag, and steaming blood pours onto his cutting board. Anyway, where was I? Roger says. You're at a farmhouse, Dave offers. That's right. Now Roger waggles his eyebrows. Dave can practically see him in a boardroom, convincing someone of something. Come here, boy, Roger says. The dog rises warily from his bed and walks over to his owner. Roger doesn't touch the dog, doesn't pet or caress, or really, it seems, enjoy the dog. All he can do is show the dog off. So the guy takes me back and introduces me to Fritos here, Roger says. And lo and behold, he fucking talks. Dave smiles, waits. This is the punchline. So when will Roger stand up and clap him on the shoulder? The sooner he does, Dave knows, the sooner he can go home. But Roger isn't looking at Dave anymore. He's looking at the dog, slapping his thighs with both hands. Come on, Fritos, Roger says. Tell Daddy a story. Dave's smile fades into a wince. It stands to reason that the first time he gets out of the house in a year, he ends up here with a lunatic. Tell us a story, Roger says. Tell us a story about Roger and Dave. He snaps twice, his face growing dark. I have known men like Roger and Dave all my life. Men wandering bewildered into bars, into churches, into farmhouses, into dentist's office and office parks. After all that, they always seem to say. After all that, this? What can you say to them? I only do what I've been trained to do. I sit back on my haunches, clear my throat, and tell them what I want to hear. Thank you very much.